A troubled confession reveals a history of family strife with a toxic aunt. The aunt unexpectedly appears at the narrator's mother's house, attacking her. Fueled by a mix of anger and adrenaline, the narrator violently retaliates, leaving the aunt bloodied. Guilt and confusion plague the narrator, who questions the morality of their actions. Despite familial support, the narrator grapples with the aftermath and seeks external opinions on their conflicted feelings. And this is their story. My aunt hit my mother, so I dragged her across the floor and punched her till she passed out. Conflicted. My aunt is a poisonous woman. Our whole family doesn't talk to her. She's done things in the past you wouldn't believe. So she left our lives years ago. Recently, she returned out of the blue at my mom's house. My mom has 2 other sisters and a brother. My mom and aunt never got on. My mom is a lovely person, but she could sense from a young age something was off about her sister, so she kept her distance. My aunt was nasty and would hurt people's feelings intentionally for no reason. She never had a partner or kids. She isolated herself from everyone. My gran cut her off when she tried to steal thousands of dollars from her. We all genuinely think there's something physiologically wrong with her. So back to where I was going with this. One morning I was at my mom's house, just chilling out, and there was a knock at the door. So I opened it, and there she was. She walked in. She looked like she had took drugs. She looked dead behind the eyes. I tried to stop her, but she pushed me down. I honestly don't know why she came to my mom's house out of everyone. I quickly got up, and she went into the kitchen. She startled my mom and punched her in the face. My mom didn't even have a chance to blink before she hit her. She went down like a ton of bricks. My heart felt like it had been sucked through into my stomach when I seen it. Something came over me. I don't know if it was anger or adrenaline, but I ran up behind her and grabbed her hair, and I dragged her out onto the back lawn, and I bashed her face about 15 times. Blood was everywhere. Thankfully, no one seen me, or I might not have been writing this right now. I got up, and I left her there. I went to check my mom. She was in a lot of pain. I looked back out the window, and she was gone. We told our family immediately about this, and they were perplexed and angry as to why she just turned up and attacked my mom. I'm still so hurt and angry as I write this. But I also feel tremendously guilty and upset that I'd done that to her because I've never fought anyone and I'm not a fighter at all, but something came over me and I snapped. I can't get over it for some reason. It just seemed so unreal and there was no reason for the attack. God forbid she had a weapon. That's truly scary to think about. We didn't call the police, as I assaulted her badly and didn't want it to bounce back on me. That's another thing I feel ashamed about. But should I feel bad or not? I need others' opinions as I've been bottling this up for a while. My gran was devastated. She just wanted her daughter back, but from a young age she took to drugs, spent time in prison, and a amount of other things. You can't help someone who doesn't want to be saved. And now we will hear out what other opinions are. Monsieur Sphincter. You shouldn't feel bad for physically protecting your mother. It's horrifying when somebody pushes themselves into your home and assaulting a loved one with no warning. Also, what if you weren't there or your mother was just alone? I would try to find solace in the fact that even though the whole situation is terrible, you were there and able to prevent her further harm. Rosh_Jobinson 1912. While I can't blame Opie for his actions or say I would act differently, I think we need to make a distinction between protecting someone and what he did. Once he removes the aunt from her house and locks the door, he's protected his mother. She can no longer get to her to harm her. He instead went and beat the shit out of this woman, again, not blaming him. Oh, I have no idea if they're a dude or chick. I'm a guy, so I kinda just assume everyone else on the internet is unless it's shown otherwise, lol. Might be a bad habit. Dirt Dob. I'm convinced that the aunt would not have gotten the message without the strident delivery. My brother bullied me till age 17 when I corrected his behavior with a glass of water to his face and a swift effective kick to his testicles. He never bothered me again, and he did not mention it. Killer B 34. The aunt accepted the fact that the police would probably be called on her, and did it anyway. She didn't plan on you kicking the shit out of her, and then not calling the cops, though. You did what needed to be done. Whiffgusher. Just because Opie removed the threat, that doesn't entirely negate the threat. Incapacitating a threat is the best way to go. Opie said she looked high on drugs. Who knows what drugs she took, what is going through her mind, what she is hallucinating, etc. She literally burst through the door and blindsided her target. And besides, I'm not a violent person at all, but assault anyone in my close circle of friends or family. Stand the fuck by. Soliats. I totally disagree. Sometimes you aren't really protecting anyone unless you make sure it doesn't happen again. If someone is bullying another and you help them get away, they will get bullied again tomorrow. On the other hand, if you make it clear the bully will get a bloody nose every time they behave that way, their behavior will change. Your attitude toward protection is the same thing that keeps battered women in shackles until they are murdered. You shot your husband while he was asleep, so you weren't protecting yourself. Now you go to prison. No shit, you waited until he was asleep. He would have beat your ass to death if you tried to stop him while he was awake. I'm not advocating that violence is always, or even often necessary to solve such problems, but that sometimes it is, and that this story sounds like one of such times. Blue Oyster Cult. As much as I can understand and empathize, holding the person that's trespassing down and hitting them repeatedly while denying them the means to leave from the area that they are trespassing by holding them down should make this position very difficult to take. I am not a lawyer, but the decent thing in my opinion would have been to call an ambulance. For Opie's mom and his aunt, regardless of how shady she might be. Although granted in such an extreme situation, and while under adrenaline and severe stress one does not tend to make rational decisions. Frat Rick. Doesn't matter. The law only wants you to do as much as necessary to defend yourself. Not saying I don't appreciate why Opie did what they did, but had there been any sort of witnesses or camera, they would definitely be arrested. Educate yourselves. I've heard this said a lot. I've had to defend myself in court a few times for assault and defense scenarios, and I always say the same thing. I'm a trained martial artist with over 15 years of experience, and what we're taught is a fight is not over until the other person cannot fight back. If someone attacks you, the fight is not over when they want to disengage, because there is a threat of them arming themselves or attacking you again when your attention is elsewhere. You must, for your own safety, treat everyone who attacks you like they may kill you, because you never know how far someone is willing to go. Wired ego. It's her story versus the aunt. No one else saw it happen, so all Op has to do is say Aunt came and knocked Op down and attacked Mom. So Op grabbed Aunt and dragged her outside and fought back, so Op punched her until Aunt stopped fighting and then left her there. Mom will back her up about being attacked, and police won't come after Op when it started everything. Tactically_tactless. Laws vary widely by location, but you can't kill someone for simple trespassing on your property. Self-defense violence is predicated on there being a threat. Many places consider home invasion to be inherently threatening, although not all. Ultimately, if you're forced into a position where you need to suffer injury or possibly death because of the law, then you should do what needs to be done and suffer the consequences. I may chill. I'd rather get charged with assault than have the crazy aunt come back in the house because you didn't get the point across the first time. Nitron Rob. I can completely understand OP and why he did it, but I don't believe it's right to fight violence with more violence. It seriously escalates the situation. Probably the best move would be to try and pin your aunt down and call the cops. I understand OP, but feel it wasn't the best move. I guess hindsight 2020 it's. Bloomfield 95. In an ideal world, you're completely right, but it depends on the situation. Dragging her away and trying to pin her down might not work for OP if the aunt manages to get free and attack OP or their mother again. Sounds like getting beat on a bit completely de-escalate the situation. Tactically_tactless. So just let Mom lay with a head injury in order to make sure the aggressor doesn't suffer an injury? That's pretty hard to get behind. Randy's_cream_fresh. No mother is the one person in this world that I would lay my life down for. I don't have a wife or kids. I'm not a fighter, but if someone punched my mom and I saw it, I would beat the living shit out of them. I don't give a shit who it is. You do not fuck with my mom. Homunculistic. If you weren't related to this woman, would you feel as bad? A virtual stranger entered your house and assaulted your mother, and you protected her. Cosmos0000. Not just the fact of that. That's a completely normal reaction. It's literally written in our DNA to protect family members. It's just nature. I would have certainly done the exact same thing. Analog pin. Go and get tested for communicable diseases. Now, if she is a drug user or has been in the past, she may very well be carrying bloodborne diseases that could have been passed to you when you got her blood on you. Make up a story if you have to, but speak to a doctor ASAP. Panko. If it makes you feel any better, the only way you could possibly feel guilty about your actions are if you didn't do anything. I guarantee you that regardless of how high or out of it your aunt was, she knows what she did and she knows she deserved it. Somewhere in the back of her head, she knows. Maybe that was the wake-up call your aunt needed to either get help or to simply stop terrorizing your family. Because she was finally given a dose of her own medicine. Your mother gave you life, and she should always be the number one woman in your life. Any chance you have to protect her is something you should be proud to do. You did the right thing, Opie. Keep your head up, smiley face. Pigwalk 5150. As I was finishing up the story, I was thinking about posting exactly these points. You would have felt a lot worse if you let your aunt assault you and your mother and done nothing. The feelings of guilt would have been overwhelming. Also, maybe now she will learn to respect boundaries and not be so bold around you and your mom. I bet she won't barge into your home ever again. That's a safe bet. You did good. You should be proud, family or otherwise. Verse 14. Sadly, I can relate, and you're not alone, Opie. I have the displeasure of being related to very troubled people and have had to take similar measures against two family members at different times. You protected your mom and got that rabid bitch out of the house. Good job. And not Sajuriak. Family or not, it is extremely rude to push your way into someone else's home. But pushing your way into someone else's home and attacking them? Opie, there are a lot of people who would have done the same thing you did. The only thing I would have done differently is that I would have called the cops and pressed charges on the aunt. She came into the house uninvited and attacked someone. There are a lot of people that say things like this though. You never truly will handle a situation like you say you will because when things go down you don't think you react. That's exactly what you did, without going overboard. Don't be too hard on yourself, smiley face. Dark arrow. Just a small correction for those who aren't aware, as this is a common misconception, victims/individuals can't press charges. You can file a police report and the cops will gather evidence, witness/victim statements, etc., and a prosecutor would decide whether or not charges are filed. If the aunt was still around when the cops got there, she could have been arrested for the battery and likely home invasion. But as to whether formal criminal charges would be filed is up to the prosecutor. 9 billion MS Ofkid. You're a hero, TBH. Fable 0 USB 0x. Take a breath. Feel the still for a moment. You're okay. I've told myself that if ever I witnessed someone attacking or unfairly ganging up on a defenseless being, I wouldn't hesitate to act on their behalf, and that is exactly what you did. Looking back on the details, who knows what else this drug-addled aunt would have done. Even after the pounding she took, her drug-induced self enabled her to walk away from it. You acted swiftly and protected your mom, yourself, and your home. Sometimes we never know exactly how we will choose to act in a situation, but this forced a reaction given the circumstances. Don't let the guilt eat you up. Charlotte_May. Being straight with you, you hit her to a bit of excess. You didn't have to hit her that much. However, this is a situation that obviously caused a lot of rage, and it's understandable that you did so. Don't feel bad. Recognize this and move on. I'm glad your mom is okay. Being completely honest, I would have done the exact same or worse. Meslo 14. Don't feel bad for what you did. I've had to do the same thing before, only my grandma came to pick up my aunt. My mom and aunt have always had an on and off relationship, but at this time they were mostly on. They got together at our house and started drinking wine. Bad idea. 2 bottles later, they start arguing and my aunt says some really nasty things when she's drunk and agitated. Long story short, she said a bunch of shit to my mom, and my mom told her to get out of her house. Then my aunt pushed my mom, and things got physical from there. I tried to break it up, but then my aunt started hitting my mom, and, like you, I just lost it. I pretty much body slammed my aunt on the tile floor and held her down while she was hitting me, and my grandma showed up, I think because my stepdad called her, and took my aunt home with her. After that situation, we cut all ties with my aunt and haven't heard from her until a year later when we had a death in the family. But even then, we still keep our distance because she's unstable. Don't feel bad for what you did. No one should ever have to see their mom being assaulted, and I commend you for acting so quickly to defend your mom. The way I see it, I don't care who you are. If you even think about putting your hands on my mom, I will take every step necessary to make your life hell. Don't harbor too much guilt. You did the right thing in protecting your mom. Nantos. Sorry to sound melodramatic, but given the circumstances, I think it's important you watch your back. I completely understand that you couldn't call the police, but given your situation, your bat-hit aunt who apparently thought she could stroll into your house and assault your mother who you beat pretty badly, is now out there somewhere. Stay vigilant. HLD on to me. Good for you, girlfriend. She might try some bullshit when she thinks you're not around. Your mom should get a no-contact order on her if she hasn't already. For her to just show up and attack your mom makes me think she has been stewing for a while, so this probably isn't over yet. Good luck. I'm proud of you. Green Gumbo 64. Despite wanting to protect your mother from harm, the violence on your part was too excessive. The moment you got your aunt out of the house, you could have just locked the door and called the police. Instead, you decided to hit her 15 times until unconscious. That is an offense, and you will be charged accordingly if the police ever get wind of this. Deleted user. So this is humble brag, right? I love all of these. My neighbor kicked my cat, so I slashed her tires. A guy punched my mom, so I sent her to the hospital. And now this one, I have literal uncontrollable rage, but am so strong and defend my family. But this is a confession, I swear. I just need to get it off my chest and haven't been talking about it to everyone I know. Some bad me. That's not your fault. She barged in and started it. You wanted to protect your mother, no need to feel bad. As you describe it, like she is also pissed off your entire family. Noto though. I would be willing to bet you feel more guilty about being out of control in a rage than you do about actually fighting your aunt. You're probably a self-control oriented person and, in turn, feel crazy for responding the way you did. That's natural. The only way to learn how to maintain control and self-awareness in a fight is to actually train to fight. Overall though, you neutralized the threat until you were confident the threat wouldn't get back up and attack again. And because of that, you did the right thing. Sure, maybe she would have stood down and ran away after only 10 punches instead of 15. But what if you had only thrown 5 punches instead and she attacked again? There was no way of judging this in the moment. Especially when your judgment was based on anger and fear rather than control-oriented fighting that only comes with training. You did right. OP. Steamonkey. Are you an 18-stone bloke or a 9-stone woman? TBH, I don't blame you either way. Someone hit your man. People eventually get what they deserve, and you were the deliverer of it. Mister. I don't care how bad your aunt was or what happened. You should never beat someone unless it's self-defense. I get what you did was instinctive, and you were trying to avenge your mother, but you should not have let your emotions take over you. I know you came here for consolation, and I get why you did but what you did. But while your aunt was wrong, you were even more wrong. Deleted user. No, it wasn't wrong, you moron. First of all, her aunt just waltzed in and shoved her, then punched her mom. The best solution is not to do nothing. Her aunt could cause a lot of harm to her mother, including death, because it happened in the kitchen. You know where the knives are. Plus, her aunt could have had a concealed weapon. Not stopping her aunt could have been one of the worst choices in her life, you know, if she cares about her mother. And trying to stop it in a more passive way could have got her hurt as well, and if she called the cops and did nothing, 2 to 3 minutes is more than enough to harm someone or kill them. So tell me now how it was wrong, cause the only wrong thing I see is slightly too much force, which barely matters since it was a heat of the moment thing and the aunt attacked unprovoked. Deleted user 2. It's pretty amazing that you recognized shame. That's an emotion that hides itself if you were to have done something wrong or had psychological imbalance. I hear you highlighting that this situation is a psychological imbalance, that this aunt needs help. Mentioning that she does need help, but also your family comes first. Your aunt broke in, assaulted your mother, and you did not hesitate to protect her. Out of pure fear for the well-being of your loved ones, you stopped a very bad situation that would have clearly ended far worse than it did. Be proud. Any judge would see that you stopped serious damage happening that day. Computus. Don't feel bad. Feel for your aunt. Most of the time, if they were in a better place, they wouldn't have acted this way. That being said, the unprovoked violence is hers to take responsibility for. I'm no expert in law, but in where I live in America, I had a very similar incident that ended up escalating to my stepfather and uncle getting arrested for assault or something before the charges were dropped. My cousin lived with my grandma. He had always been a little rough around the edges, hard to live with. Not his fault mostly, his mom was a terrible parent and he was often bullied by his older sister. He's a good kid, but not all there. Grandma had just gotten brain surgery for something serious and was told to keep her blood pressure down and be calm. Brain surgery is serious business. Eventually they get into a verbal argument. Grandma calls to complain to my stepdad, who is slightly drunk, sober enough to drive, but my uncle is not. So they call my cousin to see what's what. He replied, "I'm fighting with Grandma." So they drove over there, ripped his 6 feet 5 inches, 300-pound ass outside and gave him a black eye and some bruises. Fast forward to the court date. The judge looks at all the information, asks a few questions and dismissed the case because my stepdad and uncle were defending their mother's life in the eyes of the judge. Comment. You did the right thing, but you could have killed your aunt and put yourself in prison for a long time. Protecting your mom was a good thing. Losing your cool is what you could improve in future situations. Ostfind. Don't feel bad. And although your mother did get hit, my heart sings that you delivered a swift punishment for someone that thought it was okay to barge into the house and punch someone. That is defense and is a great reason for more shitheads not to do something like this. I wouldn't brag about it. It's not something we want to do, but something we will do if we have to. Good job protecting your mother. TF_54. I'm not gonna sit here and lie that I wouldn't have done the same. If anyone attacked my mom, they might just end up stabbed. But you said yourself that she was not right in the head, and she was probably on a lot of drugs, so she might have not done this because she hated your mom or something like that. It's good that you stopped her before she did some serious damage to your mom. Fancy_pins. Your instincts kicked in, and you defended your family and your home from a violent threat. I'm sorry you had to go through the trauma, but I'm glad you did what you did. Who knows? Maybe your aunt would have done something similar to your mother. New one. You were right to protect your mother. Sounds like you overdid it to me, but it also sounds like you were hopped up on adrenaline and kind of lost control. And that's because you love your mom. That's not the same as if you'd done it in a more normal state of mind. In any case, my belief is that guilt is only useful insofar as it helps us make things right and or prevents us from repeating harmful actions. I mean, it's also a good sign that you have it, because it means you do have a sense of empathy. But, well, I don't believe in the concept of deserve in the first place, because I'm coming from a consequentialist/deterministic point of view. In any case, I don't think it was the best course of action, but I also think it's completely understandable and that a lot of people would have done the same. Ignored_rice. When someone hurts the one you love, especially physically, your first reaction is to attack back and help your loved one. This is probably a primal response. I would not blame yourself. Your aunt came and punched your mom in an unprovoked attack. You did what you needed to do. Deleted user. You should feel bad. You crossed the line between protecting your mother and vengeance. You should have done whatever was necessary to stop the attack and no more. I understand it's a complex situation and nobody ever really prepares for something like this, but you asked, and I think you should feel bad. Arrow 1250. Ianel, depending on your state laws, you are in the complete legal right. She came to your house, assaulted you and your mother, and trespassed on your property. All you did was simply meet the threat with necessary force to protect your mom. If legal gets involved, she'd go to prison, and you'd probably get an appraisal for being a great daughter. You shouldn't feel bad though. TBH, I'm surprised you don't feel relieved. Punching something is a great way to relieve stress. Hope your mom's okay though. ID say take steps to prevent this from happening again. File for a restraining order. If she's anywhere near you or your mother, and you guys feel threatened, it's a great ticket to have police come with reasonable costs. Kits, 85. Hey, you did the right thing by your mother. Very honorable. But you went too far when you beat the hell out of your aunt. Having said that, instead of feeling guilty or ashamed, just take a step back and see it as a learning experience. Now you know something about yourself you never knew before. That you have a temper and that you can rage when triggered. You need to learn how to control yourself because things will happen in your life that will require you to handle that rage. My suggestion is to expose yourself to martial arts/boxing, etc. Something where you can be physically threatened and you have to maintain composure. Red flags and warnings only come once. I think you should learn to express your fight response in healthy/controlled ways. Matt_Taggart. Respect. People should always stand up for their mothers. Guilt is inevitable, but it was the right thing to do at the time. Bellybutton_fuss. She entered the premises without any invitation and assaulted your mother. Whether she is family or not, the cops would chalk this up to a BNE and assault/battery. You would have every right to protect anybody in your home from that intruder. Hell, if you were in the USA, you could kill her and the cops wouldn't even bat an eye, although this is definitely not the case anywhere outside the USA. Lethal muscle. Fuck no. Don't feel an ounce of guilt. She came into your home uninvited and attacked your mom. You protected her. I am glad you were able to be there for your mom. Who knows what your aunt could have done had you not been there. Ishtakum. Just found out my aunt did something similar to my mom. I don't live with her. I am very upset. But I told myself, if it happened again, I'd restrain her and call the police. It's going to be an unpopular opinion, but you went from defending to being the aggressor. I'm about twice the size of my aunt. It wouldn't take much to out her out either. Hope your family can find healing. Deleted user. Feeling guilt after a violent eruption means you are pure at heart, but know when to put the foot down and fuck shit up. We aren't really manufactured to fight each other on the regular, and I don't think violence resolves much, but if anyone did that to my mother, I would do just the same as you did, and for sure I'd feel guilt in the pits of my stomach. You are not in the wrong. Mr. Poopy Butthole. I would have done the same. My mom was assaulted by her ex-BF, and if the police didn't find him first, I would have killed him. Sneaky crit. You can't save those who don't want to be saved. Maybe you overstepped. Maybe you didn't. But at least you should take this experience and grow from it. Knowing what you are capable of is not easy, but it is useful to know that you are indeed capable. Not so you can bash people's faces in, but it gives you more confidence when trying to prevent situations like this. Easy entry. It's hard to tell from your story how much you lost it and how much was deserved. The fact that she got up and walked away is a good sign you didn't take it too far. Focus on the fact that you were able to stop yourself before it went too far. Don't beat yourself up, pun intended, for protecting your family, and don't stress about taking it too far because you very well could have killed her. If your mother is okay, and you guys have learned from this, checking the door before opening it, warning other family and friends, them_alpha_turkey. You did the right thing. Most murders happen in the kitchen. Lots of knives. If she was willing to assault your mom out of nowhere, she might have been willing to kill for no reason. You neutralized a threat and protected yourself, family, and property. I would have hurt her more, broken a leg so she couldn't run and be brought to justice. In menopause, don't care. Fight or flight, and you chose wisely. You knew you had to protect the one person that would always protect you. This ant sounds very sick and has a lot of demons. You should not carry any guilt whatsoever. If anything, you should be proud as you most likely save your mama's life. Lithium 142. I feel like you should file a police report. You said you tried to stop her from entering. That means she broke in and assaulted someone. What you did was self-defense. Say you thought you saw her reaching for a weapon if you have to. But you were certainly in the right here. Rage Machine 13. No, babe, what you did was the most heroic move for your mother. If I ever have kids, I pray they'll love me as much as you do her. Addiction sucks, but it's not a damn excuse to be a piece of shit human. Oh, give me a break. On 2 separate occasions, once when I was about 10, and once when I was about 20, I have assaulted people who hit my sister. Both times, my reaction was over the top and way more than what they've done. See, family comes first. You fuck with me? No problemo. I'll probably laugh it off. Don't want trouble. You fuck with my family? I'm gonna take you down or go down trying to take you down. You did well, young man. Trust me, that ain't will never dare show her face around your mom. You've neutralized a threat to your mom's well-being. Stay safe, and use violence only when it's the only option. De-escalate as much as you can. God bless edit. Autocorrect changed de-escalate to gibberish. Roshal Kuramiko. I openly admit to telling people I'm a mommy's girl and would mess anyone up if they hurt my mother like that. You did. Awesome. She invaded your home and attacked. You defended and conquered. Don't feel bad. This means you have good protective instincts. Deleted user. You did what a child is supposed to do for a parent, and what a parent is supposed to do for a child. These instincts to protect close family have gotten our species through many, many hardships. In short, you did what biology told you to do. But you're human with empathy. So yes, you also feel guilty. This is also natural. Good job. I hope your family is okay. Pretty_lil_lady. Would have done the same thing. I dislike my aunt also. She has the holier-than-thou complex and is two-faced. The only time she comes around is to emotional hurt my mom. She does it in private so everyone thinks she's a lovely woman, when really she's a lying tub of lard. If she ever says anything hurtful to my mom again, I'm gonna tell her how it is. Sick of my mom being hurt by her being pettiness. My mom is the sweetest lady ever and hardly sticks up for herself. You defended your mom, and that was the right thing to do. She hopefully learned her lesson to not come around. Wish I could punch my aunt, but she's a rather large bitch. Neodame. My random internet stranger friend. Do not feel bad. Someone you care about deeply that I can see here was physically assaulted. Solid enough to put them straight to the ground instantly. That snap was you going into protect mode, and you did what you had to do in that primitive mode to protect her. It's good you feel remorse for it after, but do not let that hold you down. If you didn't do your best to stop her, then she very well might have tried to seriously harm or kill you, or gone back in for a second shot. must punish this. There is nothing wrong with protecting your loved ones, but punching someone till she passes out, even if it's your crackhead aunt, is not okay. You could have SRCY injured or kill her with those 15 punches. I think punching her, in effect, and dragging her out would have been a more appropriate way. What's wrong with all these Redditors saying this type of violence is an appropriate reaction? Bread loaf bread. There are plenty of charges that can be filed, including battery and forced entry among other things. What you did is self-defense/defense of another and is completely justifiable. She came into your house uninvited and assaulted your mom, so you removed her from your house and defended your mom. You're fine, and what you did was entirely forgivable. Deleted user. Don't know if you are still reading the replies, but I'm gonna level with you. I don't think what you did was right, but I do, however, understand you. Also, I'm not sure if it wasn't necessary. It can be both a bad thing and necessary, but I am happy for you that you stepped up when you had to, and that you feel resent for doing something bad. That's a healthy sign. So no, you shouldn't feel bad about protecting her. Going a bit over the edge, well, a little resentment might not be the worst. But focus on the importance. You stepped up. You did something maybe bad, but seemingly also necessary. And everyone can snap suddenly. Humans are fragile. I hope nothing like this happens to you or any of your family ever again. Be good. And if it happens again, just try minimizing the punches. Smiley face. Gula shimmy. From a purely removed and subjective stance on this, and I'm not overly clear on your laws, being based in the UK, but if she barged her way into your home and assaulted your mother, isn't she trespassing on your property anyway, even if she is family? You were to know in the state she was in if she had a concealed weapon or not. I don't think legally you'd be in any trouble for defending your mom in your own home, because who's to say she would have stopped at just a punch? In my opinion, you did the right thing, and I'm sorry your family went through that. Might be worth trying to file some form of restraining order if you don't already have one. That way you can doubly protect yourself should she try this crap again. Prindy 490. My brother, there is nothing to be ashamed of. Put in that situation, we all should respond in kind. What I would challenge you to is forgiveness. First, forgive yourself. You are forgiven. You may not be able to forgive your aunt yet, but be willing to be made willing to forgive. Only you and God can walk this road in your perspective. I love you, brother. Stay strong. Corterial. You feel bad because you are a normal human being, and even though your actions were out of protection towards a loved one, you still feel bad for hurting another human being. Even that person is horrible. Talk this through with someone, but to me just shows you are a decent human being. Porno_ru. Same thing happened to me in the past. My father was very abusive in the last few years before I moved in with my mom. They separated before I was born. On the night that I was finally moving out, he grabbed my neck hard, pushed me against a wall. I kinda had the same feeling. I still don't know if it was rage or adrenaline, but I just punched him in the face real hard. I didn't even know how hard I punched him until I saw his lip bruised and his nose bleeding. I locked myself in the bathroom as his girlfriend went over screaming at the both of us. Sometimes I have my doubts, but I don't think I should feel bad about this. I was protecting myself, you were protecting your mother. Two very natural instincts. And if ever you're thinking on the legal side, depending where you were in the world, the simple fact that she threw the first punch, knocked you down as she came into the house uninvited is pretty stable ground for a self-defense as far as I know. Ocular AMVs. My mom has been physically and emotionally abused, and when I was young, I was forced to watch her lead a life filled with sadness, pain, and suffering. She is a sweet woman who has always put every single person's needs ahead of her own. Now that I'm older, I'm very protective of her and do everything to pay her back for all she has done for my brother, and while also making sure she lives the best life from here on out. I would have done the exact same as you. Demi1. I think you did the right thing, and you shouldn't feel guilty. If you saw a random start hitting an older woman on the street for no reason, you'd want someone to intervene, right, and defend her, right? Well, in this case, you played the protector. Be proud you were able to defend your family. I'm a professional fighter, and fighting is natural to humans. We have a fight or flight response naturally embedded in us, and your body decided to take fight. Smiley face. If it ever happens in the future, you'll be able to make a conscious decision if you want to get involved or not and go from there. All the best. If you need to talk a bit more about it, feel free. I'm a professional fighter and have thought a lot about this before. Smiley face. Emotional yesterday. I understand how difficult that was for you, and I applaud you for your quick action. I hope you understand how bad the situation could have gotten quickly for your mom. Try not to beat yourself up too much. not at all preferably, and no, you did the right thing. She clearly came with the intent to harm her sister, and your quick response was more than justified. Love to your whole family. Lady Phase. I can understand why you feel the way you do. I've never been in a physical fight either, but you should not feel guilty about this. Your aunt physically assaulted you when she shoved you over at the door. She barged in and punched your mother hard enough to knock her to the ground unprovoked. You had reason to believe she was under the influence, and that she would continue attacking your mother if you did not intervene. Dragging her outside was reasonable, and I think that it would be reasonable to believe that she would run back in the house to attack your mother again if you didn't use physical force to keep her down. You were dealing with a woman with a history of unpredictable, antisocial behavior. I'm sorry that this happened to your family, though. I have a crazy aunt, too. Obligatory disorder. I'm more and more inclined to the idea that sometimes your actions can't be helped. Ideally, yeah, maybe you should have tried to restrain her or take action besides punching her 15 times, leaving her covered in blood. Realistically, and I'm sure many of us can confirm from our own experiences, you won't be able to control yourself or think. Your body just acts on a very primal, brutal survival setting at some point. You may not have been right, but you definitely weren't wrong, and your aunt pretty much made this inevitable. Paul Grant 999. It's funny how many people are responding with some nonsense about the law. He's asking if he was morally wrong. The answer is maybe. You have no idea what was going on. But having said that, no, you shouldn't feel bad. She startled you, then brought violence into your house, and you got a dose of adrenaline. Kicks in fight or flight, and in your case, it was definitely fight. Point being, it's a physiological response to violence/startlement. But if you're feeling bad about it, call her up and apologize to her. Don't make it a long apology. Just tell her you're sorry for what happened, and don't mention anything else. You never know, do you? You were okay, thankfully. My mom is feeling much better. Right now, just trying to figure out why she came to us out of the blue and tried to attack my mom, who she has never done anything to nor communicated with her. I do think she was so hyped up on drugs that she was just looking for a fight with one of us. Or maybe this is her screaming for help. I just don't know what's going through her mind. We have a good, quiet family, so this definitely has shaken us. Remember, Nate, the only time I would hit a woman would be defending myself or a loved one from being assaulted or worse, especially being pounced upon in your own home. Absolutely no question I would have done the same. I don't really feel good saying it, but it's the truth. People of any gender, color, height, weight, whatever the fuck. We are all human. There is a line. Relax. Breathe. You're okay. Garden_of_trees. I can empathize. I worked for my father in the family business, and one day my uncle was visiting and they started to verbally fight. I went upstairs and my uncle started to punch my father. My brain went blank. I jumped on him, put my arm around his throat, and just started hitting him until my dad told me to stop. I have never hurt anyone or want to hurt people. My instinct to protect a loved one just kicked in. Our body kicks into fight or flight, and your body chose fight. She got up and left, so I know it must be a shitty feeling, but I believe you're okay. Kairos 13. You feeling guilty and upset just shows that you're not a dumbass, heartless piece of shit like your aunt. It shows that you have morals and you follow rules and you feel bad about what you've done. You beat someone else. You committed battery. You've laid hands on another human being. And I would have done the same thing. Firstborn 94_. She hit your mom. With no reason. In my book, that's grounds for homicide. Don't be so hard on yourself. Since the ice has already been broken for physical violence, know that you may need to protect your mother again, Opie. From your aunt, or maybe some of her friends. Be careful and I wish you luck. Lostron in 1928. If there is one person on this planet you should go to ground for, it's your mother. Be proud of your actions and the defense of your mother. What if you hadn't interceded when you did? What if your aunt wasn't done yet? I've been in a similar situation, twice in my life. I feel zero guilt or remorse. They both had it coming. My only regret was that I didn't act sooner. Hold your head high and live your life. You did the right thing. I've never been one for calling the police. There's the law and then there's justice. Those are two very different and sometimes not mutually exclusive things. Great work. Violetta by. It's called The Shadow. Everyone has the capacity for great evil. You unleashed it in defense and retaliation. Don't be afraid of your shadow. Embrace it and then tame it. Knowing you have that tame capacity makes you not a target for bullies. That is why your aunt shoved you out of the way and then attacked your mom. She didn't anticipate a fight. I pray she took that beating to heart and don't ever bother you and your mom again. But I fear she might not. Deleted user. It's scary to experience that part of ourselves, especially when it's so unfamiliar to our usual way of handling conflict or stressful situations. You snapped, but you didn't lose your shit. The line between right and wrong blurred, but you managed to stay on the justified side. I don't think you should feel guilty, but I always feel guilty about shit I shouldn't. So even though you shouldn't, doesn't mean you won't anyway. Try to reassure yourself and not let the guilt swallow you. Ultimately, you have a good serving to your aunt, but sucker punching your mom was the first move. Hitting someone, whoever it is, comes with the consequence of, I am opening myself up to be hit back. If she didn't want that result, she shouldn't have swung in the first place. Jim March. Here's the deal. You are a fighter, as are all other humans, male or female. That's a biological fact. You come from a very long bloodline of fighters, like every other human. You need to accept it and learn the legal and moral repercussions. In this incident, you screwed up a little bit, but not too bad. Could have been worse. You might have kept on until she was seriously hurt or dead. Your initial reaction wasn't bad, but you probably should have held her for the cops after a shorter beating. But don't sweat it. You did hold back enough. You should study the laws on deadly versus non-lethal force and accept that this is necessary to know ahead of time, along with the plain fact that you are a fighter. Ignore it, deny it, and bad shit can happen. Channel it properly, and it's a good thing. I've saved a guy's life once while threatening to use a knife on the 4 psychos trying to kill him. Shit does happen, as you've learned the hard way. It could have gone down a lot worse. Relax, you're not a bad person. Learn from this, and you'll be a better one. Know to God_son. Your aunt is a shitty person, and I would want to do the same thing. However, doing what you did wasn't a good idea. Definitely went too far. I do understand you just snapped, and it's really hard, but in these situations people should try to avoid excessive violence like this. Keith Carter 4897. No, you absolutely should not feel bad for defending your mother from an unwarranted assault. As odd as it sounds, you did the right thing by forcibly removing her from the house and showing her that you were willing to physically stand up and defend your family. I would take this as an opportunity to let her know that she is unwelcome in the future, for the safety of your family, and that you will call the police the instant she shows up again. Scully007. I know it was a horrible situation to be in. Even if you called the cops, it would have been self-defense because she pushed you and came in the house. You did what you had to do. I hope my kids grow up to be like you. So brave. Maybe talk to a therapist? So you can rid of the guilt. I would think you would have PTSD from this. Anyway, good luck. SD_TMI. I have to point out that drugs are a symptom and commonly used by those with problems as a poor, destructive coping mechanism. I'm sorry for your family and everything you described right now. You did the right thing by protecting your mother from someone that is clearly unbalanced. The Black Darkness. WDF is wrong with all the people in this thread. Even as someone might deserve to be beaten, if you hit someone's head 15 times against anything, they can die, and then you go to jail because you are an idiot. There is a difference between defending someone and being the criminal. Jussie's a good thing. I usually don't reply to posts, and this will probably be buried, but I've scrolled through the top comments and was surprised by the lack of differentiated answers. As these commenters also said, I agree that what you did is understandable. But guilt is an emotion that has a function, and it is a very real feeling you have. You snapped, and you injured another human being. I do not agree that you should not feel bad about it, because you do feel bad about it. Accept the guilt and understand why you feel it. I think that you feel this way because you think it is wrong to injure and attack people. This is a healthy response and the difference between you and people like your aunt. Your feeling tells you that what you did is wrong. It doesn't matter whether it is understandable or not. You feel like it was a wrong thing to do. Forgive yourself and learn from it. Although you might never be in a similar situation again, do make it your goal to only resort to violence in an amount that is necessary to protect yourself and others. Furthermore, there is also the guilt you feel because you did not contact the police. You feel like you deserve punishment for what you did and believe in the system, at least to an extent, that delivers this punishment. You might resolve this guilt by doing some social work, for example. Or, if you feel it necessary, you can still contact the police and report yourself and your aunt. Ask yourself what you feel is appropriate. Josh IMAX. Unpopular opinion coming up. You should want to protect your family, but you did use more force than was necessary, and you should feel bad about that. Learn from this experience. If you were able to drag this woman out of your home without hitting her at all, then there was really no need to knock her unconscious. I think you know this already and is part of why you feel guilty. You should have dragged her out, locked the door, checked on your mom, and then called the police. But now you know in case it happens again. Mr. Poopy Butthole 1984. My dad and uncle got into it a few years ago. Lots of drugs involved, but somehow my uncle knocked my dad out. Cool, you won fight over. But he instead jumps on his motionless body and starts to hit him. I immediately grabbed my uncle's head that was at about knee height and hit him with UFC knee-type kick. Had time think that didn't do enough and punched down on his face. I blacked out and came to when he was screaming that I heard him, and I was between him and my dad. I still only think I threw just the one punch, but it split his cheek open good and blood was everywhere. When the adrenaline was gone, I felt so bad I hurt my uncle. I had tears the whole time wiping up from the blood from the floor. Horrible feeling hurting family, but I'd do it again to protect my dad. Black and white. When someone tries to hurt you at a loved one unprovoked, if you are able, you defend them. If you aren't able, you get help immediately. You don't know what would have happened if you hadn't intervened. Maybe she would have knocked your mother out and left. Maybe she would have ransacked the house. Maybe she would have kept hitting her over and over. You can never know what would have happened. In the moment you saw a reportedly hateful person, possibly on drugs, assault you and then attack your mother. Whatever doubt or sadness you're feeling, don't. Worst case scenario, there could have been a death, but you acted immediately, albeit out of rage and likely fear, to save your mother and defend your home from an intruder. Cowabunco. But I noticed you said, recently, so I strongly urge you to take some steps to protect your house and yourselves. Peephole and cover, cameras. Make sure it's hard to get in through a window or door. Put at least a latch of some kind on your bedroom doors so it can't be opened silently. Trim back bushes where someone can hide. Be extra aware when leaving the house and when coming back home. I really hope you've seen the end of it, but when such a human stain is involved, I really recommend you spend at least a little effort to be safer. Husey 1997. Well, you know she's your aunt, but by the sounds of it, she seems like a bit of a stranger to you, not being around too much, etc. I mean, if she was a lovely person and was around all the time and done that, your reaction would have been a lot different. But I wouldn't feel guilty for protecting my mom from someone who's practically a stranger. Idfro. Defending your mom was the right move, of course, but I disagree with everyone saying that you were totally in the clear. As someone with a close family member who was just as insane, I can say there's nothing wrong with cutting them off, but you can't bash their brains in when something like this happens. No matter what they've done to deserve it, there is something psychologically wrong with them. You do what you need to for defense, but beating someone senseless who has something wrong with them is wrong. Don't feel ashamed for going a little too far this time, but know that any interaction with her in the future should be handled with restraint instead of emotion. Brown banners. Yes, you should feel bad. Not to say that what you did wasn't justified, but maybe a tad bit over the top. But if that's how you feel, then that's that. Your emotions don't need to reflect whether your action was right or wrong. Sometimes doing the right thing hurts more than doing the wrong thing, and sometimes the best decision isn't the right decision. So whether what you did was justified isn't the point right now. It's important to understand why you're feeling regret. Clearly, you're generally a kind person. Unlike your aunt, you have the capacity for empathy, and you should wholeheartedly embrace that. Your empathetic nature is simultaneously why you feel bad for doing this and why you're a gentle person. It takes a real psycho to not feel any remorse after something like that. People of such a nature are generally dicks for a reason. Deleted user. I don't fault you in the least. I would call a lawyer and then get them to inform the police. Something this bad or worse could happen again if she doesn't get punished or get help. Often it's necessary to demonstrate a pattern of behavior against people when it comes to the law in order for them to treat it accordingly. She likely has psychiatric issues and needs help, or at least a shot at help. Or another shot at help. It's never too late for people to get the help or the punishment that they deserve. Migaffer. You probably did the right thing. You didn't cause her brain damage or cripple her. Getting the cops involved would have been a pain in the ass and eaten up half your day. This response means she'll likely not come over and try that kind of stuff again. You feel upset because you are a normal human with empathy who doesn't like to hurt others. Just know that she is the one who pushed you into it. It is not a reflection upon who you are. CMWHPH 32U1. I have a similar relationship with my aunt. She even got a restraining order on her one and only son, who did nothing wrong at all. There is definitely some physiological problem. She is very OCD. As in if her son messed on the floor, she would shout at him while he is cleaning it up. She gave him no love for most of his life. Purple bus. You are right. Some people won't let anyone help them ever. They are broken beyond repair. I do not think you should feel bad for your reaction or what happened to your aunt. If it were me, the only question I would ask myself is, am I comfortable with my level of control throughout this situation? If I felt I was out of control, then I would work on that, either through self-reflection or with the assistance of a professional. If I felt that I was in control, I would be fine with my actions. Joseph 101025. I don't know where you live, but in Texas, where I currently live, if you reported it, there would be a warrant for her arrest right now, and you would likely still be a free man, especially if you're a minor. Home invasion, and she assaulted your mother, and you fought in defense. Remember, she pushed you, then punched your mother, then you hooped her ass. You did nothing wrong. Bumbling diva. This is an understandable reaction from you. I imagine that you are feeling horrified that you have discovered an inner violence and felt out of control of yourself. People respond in different ways. This is why it is known as the fight versus flight or freeze reaction to adrenaline, not the calmly be reasonable reaction. You probably would have done the same if it had been a stranger. You don't need to justify yourself by explaining that your aunt is a horrible person. If you feel the need to make amends to clear your conscience, do so now. If you are worried about your own anger, you can get help for managing that. Solid Star Man. I don't think you should feel bad, but excessively hurting someone beyond neutralizing the threat they pose to others is wrong. I know the moment took you. Righteous violence is still violence and begets suffering. So just keep that in mind next time you have to defend someone physically. You did good by protecting your mother, so be proud of that. Marmalade grass. As someone who lost their mother a few years back, I applaud your self-restraint. Don't be guilty about letting her push past you. And sure as hell don't be guilty about protecting yourself against an unauthorized intruder. Knork. Everyone is talking about the legal aspects of this, but I don't think that is what the OP cares about right now. Did the OP do the right thing? Should they be upset with themselves? OP, you were protecting your mother in a very unusual situation. You reacted out of fear and instinct. You did what you thought was right in that moment. Be content with that. Solly McFatneck. Although I don't condone violence, I will tell you that you did what you had to do. Someone came into your family's house and sucker punched your mom? No. You have every right to defend your family and homestead. I'm from Texas, so I may think a little differently, but do not feel bad. Who knows what could have happened if you hadn't stepped in. Do not feel bad for taking care of your mom. You did the right thing, honey. Like I tell my kids, you don't start it, but if someone put their hands on you or your sister, mom, in your case, then, baby, you finish it. Or zero bot evil. You shouldn't feel bad, but you should think about calling the cops. I don't know what the laws are like where you live, but where I live, the first person to call the cops in a situation like this basically gets to file the assault charges. Also, you have on your side that she committed 1. Battery against you, 2. Unlawful entry and trespassing, and 3. Assault on your mom. In any reasonable society, you're legally allowed to respond with physical force in that situation. Maybe don't mention that you punched her 15 times, but if you say you punched her and dragged her out of the house, you should be in the clear legally speaking. Also, I would have done roughly the same thing. If I see someone sucker punch my mother in her own house, one of us will be leaving feet first. Isander aside. I reckon humans have some kind personality switch that flips when they are confronted with a situation like yours. Basically, if we were a small tribe back during times we all live in huts and survival was a day-to-day struggle as an example. Imagine one if the tribesman starts going nuts and randomly attacks a child or elder, would be fairly useful and simple outcome. Kill the crazy, save the tribe. I'm not basing this on anything other than my opinion, but I reckon we all still have that switch buried deep in our primal psyche. The Chihuahua Whisperer. You let adrenaline get the best of you. It's all a spectrum. That we're protecting your mom, but punching anyone until they pass out is extreme. You aren't going to help your mom if you end up with manslaughter charges. Get creative with the ways that you protect yourself, and the ways you protect yourself and your family. I suggest egging her and throwing trash on her while trying to shame her. Banana_salsa. Feel bad about what? Home invasion? She's lucky she wasn't shot dead. Plenty of places in the country where those actions would get her a nice bullet put in her body. I'd lawyer up instantly if you hear any more about this. With your aunt's history of being toxic, for shoving you to get into the house after telling her she can't come in. then immediately full on assaulting your mother, and you as a child couldn't even stand the sight of something so horrendous happening that in an instant all you thought about was protecting your family, so you dragged out her ass outside and kicked it. I think the jury would be on your side 100%. Plea plop 3. It's more than understandable that you were furious and protected your mother, but your response was too extreme. The way you described it gave me the impression that this went beyond protection. Hitting someone out of self-defense is different than hitting out of anger or revenge. Dragging her by her hair, then punching her until the point of passing out seems like you wanted her to suffer and to seriously hurt her. That kind of hitting is to relieve anger rather than just get her away from your mom and diffuse the situation. If someone did that to my mom, I'd freak and want to do the same, but that doesn't make it right. Someone on here referred to you as a him? I'm not sure if you were a male, but keep in mind a punch from a man is often way more severe than a punch from another woman. I hope that your mom is okay and really hoping nothing like this happens again. It really sucks that you were even put in this situation. What's up, Bissell 420? I can completely attest to the remorse. I am not a fighter either, but about 10 years ago my stepdad had said he was going to kill my mom. I truly don't think he meant it, but I just started punching him in the face until my mom screamed that she was calling the cops. They had a very toxic relationship. My real father left the picture when I was 2 years old, and she didn't remarry until I was about 10 years old. I had always been protective of her, but living in the struggle and making it out made our bond so much stronger. I want to say though my stepdad was an okay guy. He drank a little too much sometimes and had blood sugar problems, and it's not an excuse, but he would really be a different person. They always argued, but never got physical until a week before I punched him. I wasn't home at the time and glad I wasn't, but they shoved each other. He pushed her into our old clock and she moved out. I didn't see him between the shoving match and me punching him, so I guess it was just everything. I punched him, knocked him down in the street in front of people, and nowadays I regret it, feel embarrassed for him, and genuinely sorry. I also feel pretty trashy and cringe when I think about it, but then again, don't say you are gonna kill my mom. Exile 2K. Better than I am. I wouldn't have stopped. I know my temperament. I get pissed, and I also get enraged. Only once before in my life had I had one of those seeing red moments, and that was when I squared off against my brother and almost ended up in prison for that. If someone clocked my mother in the face like that, I know that switch would have flipped. My mother is the last person in my family that I have, so it would have been a bad result. Good on you for having enough restraint to stop. Let go of the shame/guilt. You did what needed to be done, and I guarantee your aunt will remember it. Be glad you don't have the guilt of causing something major. Fighting 55. I've read few comments, but people only praise Opie for protecting his family and saying that he did nothing wrong. I love my mother. I would probably act very similar to the way you did. But what worries me is how you mentioned bashing your aunt's face 15 times. If I were you, I'd also feel guilty about it. What you did was good, but the way you did it was wrong. I may be misinterpreting your story, but it sounded like a very brutal retaliation. You should think about anger management and using appropriate amount of force in self-defense. Deleted user. Agree with everyone. Don't feel bad. But what you and your family need to understand is a lot of humans are mentally fucked up. Just like not every car, smartphone, or radio is made perfectly, humans are no different. Some babies have physical defects. Some are born with mental defects. Yet even others become damaged at a young age due to some kind of trauma. I recommend reading up on abnormal psychology to figure out what your aunt has. Then make every precaution to protect yourselves from her and society. There are more things like your aunt than PPL realize. The government, society, and media refuse to accept that there are crazy, irrational things that walk around us masquerading as humans. We don't have mental wards anymore, so the only thing we can do is wait until they commit a crime. Usually, PPL are dead or lives destroyed by that time. Ugh. Y3. You didn't do anything wrong. If this was an aunt who was sending you checks on Christmas, maybe it's a different story, but it sounds like that's not the case. Also, you should consider reporting the incident to police, because if your aunt is manipulative, she could easily file a report and there will be physical evidence she was assaulted, and then you could be getting in trouble. But if you file first about the trespassing and battery on your mom and explain you defended her, it's very unlikely you'll get in trouble and police will be on your side before they even receive a report from your aunt. Your average sheep. I think the only issue here is how you did it. You probably could have knocked her out with one hard punch, but you chose to hit her about 15 times. Granted, she probably deserves it. It's always good to be the better person. That said, If I was in your situation, I would regret it for the simple fact that I would have the image of her bloody face forever when I could have just thrown one hard punch, or even better called the cops and got her jail time. Haramia 5766. Are you me? Holy shit. A lot of these events are almost identical what is happening to my mother. But the useless piece of shit in question is my uncle. Our family always tried to play nice. You know, keep the peace. Since both grandparents passed away, I have no, and I mean no desire to associate or keep the peace. Why? Why would I? I hate to say it, but he's caused so many problems with our family, I don't think anyone would shed a tear if he died. Not one person. If he ever laid a finger on my mother, I would probably be arrested for murder. Dazzle me already. For context, you should know I'm a stable, non-violent, family-oriented, upstanding kind of woman. No criminal history whatsoever. But I totally understand how you snapped to protect your mother. A similar thing happened to me when my kids were very young, both under 3 years old. A mentally ill woman threatened us when we were taking too long in a public restroom, as children normally do. Something came over me that shocked me to my core. In the wild, mother bears will literally shred to death any threats to their young. And they will do so in a gruesome and unflinching way. I knew in that moment, with total clarity, that I was absolutely capable of the same. In my mind, I saw myself gearing up to grab that woman and smash her head against the wall until it looked like a dropped watermelon. And I was screaming at her the entire time. The only thing that stopped me was a small voice in my head telling me how traumatizing this would be for my kids to witness, so I held back. That and the fact that the woman hadn't actually struck either of my kids. Instead, I defended us verbally and shut her the hell down. Then I took me and my kids to safety. For days, I was so shook up. Something completely alien to my entire life experience had possessed me in that moment. I felt shame and shock that I could be capable of such violence. And truthfully, I was grateful to know that I could protect my kids if need be. It sounds to me like this is what happened to you. So go ahead and have mixed feelings about what happened. I think it's a healthy response. In a rational society, violence should be avoided at all costs. But if violence comes down upon you, defend yourself and your loved ones. Please have compassion for yourself. Hope this helps. Deleted user. Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, blood relative or not. They attacked your mother in her own house for absolutely no reason. It's perfectly normal to go to your mother's rescue. The thing is, with all the adrenaline rush, you went overboard. The dragging her by the hair is not the end of the world. But the hitting her until there was blood everywhere is a bit excessive. At least, at the end, she was able to get up. If she didn't, things could have gone south for you. I'm sitting behind a screen judging the incident, and it's easy to be rational about it from this perspective. In the heat of the moment, things can be perceived differently. Next time, if shit hit the fan, try to keep yourself under control or you might end up in jail. My little rocket ship. Damn, I don't know what to say. That girl's just crazy. But thinking maybe, this issue could have been addressed. Not trying to insult anyone here, and I know this all hindsight. But if you want to change someone even if they don't want to, and let them see the light in what they're doing and realize for themselves that they're wrong. Your mom keeping distance is not the right way. To address an issue, you have to give 110% of your energy to the person's life, even if you are viewed as a nuance. Because then you'll know that you've done everything you can and persistence eventually wins over. Something at least. Deleted user 2. Listen, this is a fairly normal reaction. Fight or flight. And as social animals, we tend to protect our people when there is a threat. It's how we made it so far and didn't all get eaten and become prey animals. As to feeling bad, yeah, I get it. I have sat on the guilt of punching my dad a few times for over a decade. He is an alcoholic, and I tell myself I was in the right. But it doesn't matter. He was older and abusive or not, it still doesn't sit right with me when I think about it. Our relationship and his health has improved a lot since then, but I also hardly see him due to living and working far from where my parents live. You are likely going to have these feelings for some time, but they will get buried eventually. And even though they will likely surface from time to time, just push past them best you can and it will subside again. Not the best answer, I know, but it's one of those situations where you really can't convince yourself it was okay. It sounds like at your core you are likely a good person, and like most people you aren't proud of violent actions, justified or not. MS Bad Wolfie. Opie, someone entered your home without permission. They accosted you then assaulted your mother. What you did was remove them from the home and ensure that they did not hurt anyone else you care about. This is legally and morally acceptable. What is making you feel bad is who this person is. right? If it was some random off the street, you wouldn't have these conflicting emotions. They are based off of what our society says about family. Blood is thicker than water, family comes first, etc. Which is great. That's totally fair in many cases. But from what you've described, this woman hasn't been family. She has not earned that privilege. If you want to have family, then you have to behave as though you do. She didn't, so she's not entitled to the benefits that come from family. Bottom line, I would have dragged her ass out of the house, too, and not felt bad for a second. You took care of your real family, the people who stuck around and earned that title. Let's make beep-ups. Sometimes in a human's life, there are times when we are given the option of commuting violence or letting violence happen unimpeded. Violence, be it attack or defense, is something that is fundamentally against the society we as humans have created. But sometimes there's no other option, and the animal brain takes over and makes you do what you need to protect yourself or someone else. Feeling bad only means you are a civilized, normal, and generally non-violent person, and you should in no way feel any worse than you have to about defending the safety of others through violence. Many regular people have had to do the same, and it can be shocking when we live in the world we have created, which is generally free from such things. Don't take pride in how you handled the situation, but know that your snap judgment was just, and that there was likely no other way to handle it. We have a moral and biological obligation to protect the ones we love and the ones that cannot protect themselves. 88 Kiera. If your aunt has big history with the police, they would know what she is like. Even if you did report the attack, the police would understand why you reacted the way you did. Maybe you can still talk to the police and see if there is any way they can get her accessed by a mental health and drug team. As for the guilt, I completely understand. Just know that no one else sees what you did as wrong. I believe everybody would have handled the situation the same as you. There would be a whole lot of emotions and feelings behind seeing your mother getting attacked, especially when the attacker is a drug-affected family member. Your aunt really could have cut loose and have severely hurt your mom. It was a great thing you were there. Can even say that you were meant to be there. Edwarder 96. For an aunt like that, you should never feel ashamed of that thing you did to her, because she truly deserved that. No one would ever turn up to someone else's house, out of the blue, and then started punching in its owner's face like that. Your anger was part of the protective feeling you had for your mother, and it could be totally understandable. So you should feel no shame about your act. Just move on and think that that wicked woman deserved your punches for hurting your mother. Liquorock. My boyfriend has a cousin who he loves so much. He has our daughter call him uncle because that's how close they are. One night we all got very drunk at his cousin's house and everyone was having a good time. All of a sudden his cousin had my boyfriend's mom pinned against the wall by the neck because she said something he didn't like. Next thing you see is my boyfriend bashing his cousin and the two of them trying to kill each other. They didn't speak for a year and a half but are okay now. I get what you did and why you did it. No one lays a hand on Mama Bear and gets away with it, no matter if you're blood or not. Luramisk. I'm not a violent person. I've never gotten into a fight or been rude to anyone in a fight-me manner. But when I was younger, probably a sophomore or junior, I witnessed my mother's, now ex-husband hit her. I knew what kind of person he was, but I had never actually seen him hit her before. I snapped, and my 15 to 16-year-old self, heavy set, had that 40-year-old man on the kitchen floor just hitting him, and at some point my hands on his throat. I'm sure the only reason I was able to get him down was because he was drunk and unstable. My mother and brother pulled me off of him. You were protecting someone you love, and I most certainly wouldn't regret it or feel bad about it. To be honest, the only thing I regret is letting them pull me off of that bastard because my mother was afraid to leave him, and he gave us 5 more years of misery before he finally left after our last confrontation. Psychic's word. Your home was invaded by someone whose first action was to physically assault you and your mom. The fact that they are related by blood doesn't have any bearing on that. While I can't say if punching her until she is passed out was completely justified, as that would require me to be there to know the full situation, it was fully justified to defend yourself and your mother in this situation. I wouldn't feel bad, but understand that even people who defend themselves against violent strangers can feel bad despite the obvious justification. If you feel like you were tearing yourself up about it, I would implore you to talk to a professional. Noisedia. You shouldn't have done that and should have called the police. Got her out of the house or restrained her, sure, but not impulsively attack for revenge. That way you could have reported your mom's assault, charged her, got a restraining order. If your aunt wanted, she can now charge you and paint you as the bad guy, which a deranged person can and will do, and the police can put you in jail for it. The law is the law. They care about actions and consequences, not your feelings. It sucks, but when dealing with that type of person, careful reporting and making sure she is the bad guy that can't be refuted by anything is the only way to get her punished. Take the law into your own hands, and she has a legal weapon to fight you with and manipulate a case in her favor. Deleted user. Good for you. I give you mad props. You gotta protect family. I understand. My grand-aunt is extremely toxic and for some reason treated my grandmother, her sister-in-law, and everyone but her brother like complete garbage. She calls some of us fat or annoying or whatever. My grandfather never stood up for my grandma or any of us, ever. He always took my grand-aunt's side and usually stayed silent for some reason, which I found odd, and it pissed me off ever since I was a child. No one really did anything about it because it wasn't our place. My mom was the only one who would stick up for my grandmother and try and keep her away. My mom said she hit her when she was a teen because she hit my grandmother before too. She also tried to keep my grand-aunt from family functions, but my grandfather kept inviting her, even though she'd verbally harass everyone, every single holiday. Last year at Christmas, my grand-aunt decided to lash out on my grandmother for no reason. I am usually a quiet person and never really get raging mad unless someone is being hurt unjustly. My grandmother told my grand-aunt to leave her house because she was being rude, so my grand-aunt punched her in the face really hard and said, "This is my brother's house, you don't make the rules." Everyone was shocked. There was 7 of us all just trying to celebrate Christmas. Everyone froze, but I completely lost my shit. I walked over to her and punched her face again and again. I called her a fucking bitch and told her to go rot in hell and to never touch my grandmother again. It's like I completely blacked out and became another person. My mom came over and pulled me off before I knocked her out, because I really wanted to knock her out and drag her across the room. She got away with this kind of shit for too many years, and only my mom and I have done anything about it. No one expected me to do or say what I did because I was never a fighter and avoided a lot of confrontation. But that was my grandma, and she's the most humble, sweetest woman. I couldn't let that evil woman get away with that. She said she would press charges, but never did. Haven't seen her since and don't plan to. My grandfather passed away in the spring, and she blamed it on my grandmother, of course, but she didn't even go to his funeral. Interesting enough. El Mayo. Still to this day my mom and I laugh about it. She deserved it, and I have no regrets.